From the papers presented today, there is no any iota of doubt that the NMDPRA is the chief regulator when it comes to this industry. I'm sure the outcome is not contesting that. However, what we have not noticed to elaborate from is Section 48 of the PIA. Section 48 anticipates delegation of a similar role done by the NMDPRA, and therefore requires that any regulatory agency that intends to do this job, they must have authority from them. I'm sure it is very, very imperative. So the law, part of the problem we have as human beings that there is this kind of absolutism. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, give us Section 48, if you can. Can you? Okay, Section 48 says you drive your authority. I'm not wearing glass, read it for me. Section 48.
Yeah. Section 48 says,
no, just evaluation.
Any government ministry, department or agency exercising any power or function or taking any action which may have direct impact on midstream or downstream petroleum operations shall consult with the authority prior to 1. Issuing any regulation, guideline, enforcement, order or directive, exercising any such power or function. 3. Taking any such action. 2. The authority shall review the recommendations of the government ministry, department or agency, and communicate decision accordingly, and the decision shall be complied with by the relevant government ministry, department.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And you know, when we are doing the PIA, a very long time ago, this kind of conflict actually arose. And that's why this clause was put. So the question is, why can't the prison and the NMDPRA sit and drive this authority from them? And why should the NMDPRA will decide not to give it to you? Because this position clearly says you can relate. You can relate. So I'm sure as we are speaking for connectivity, nexus, this provision in 48 provides us the latitude, the leeway, because if it is in the interest of Nigerians, you people should sit, okay, this is what we intend to do, give us the authority, and then we do the needful, and then they oversight you, and then you show them the results. And I think if we sit down and look at provision of this 48, it solves a lot of our problems.
I should think that what we are running around is coming out clearly to separate the mandates as given by the Petroleum Industry Act. Our brother, Senator Ningi, has done very well by drawing our attention to Section 48. And if Section 48 is very clear in its provisions, very precise provisions, there's no way we can be having doubt as to who is the top agency or the regulator. Can the OGFVA, ZA, drag its authority with Nigerian midstream, downstream petroleum regulatory authority? I think Section 48 clearly answers it. They cannot do any of those things without consulting with this authority before they can do anything in terms of regulation on any matter that will impact on downstream and midstream petroleum operations. So if we uphold this, I don't think there's any reason why we should be talking about something anomaly or inability to treat the cause. The foundation has been laid by Section 48 on how to get these things done. So it's for us to insist that the Oil and Gas Free Zone Authority in its operations should be able to relate with the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Regulation Authority. Unlike what my brother Senator Abaribe said, the National Electricity Regulation Commission, the Power Act, gave states the authority to generate, distribute, and transmit power. It does not give the state authority to hook up to the national grid and begin to distribute what it did not generate. The state has to, first of all, generate the power. If it generates the power, it has the authority given to it by the Act to distribute and transmit what it generates, not what another agency generates. You go and hook into it. It's unlawful for a state to go and hook into distribution of power generated by another agency. So there's no conflict even there. It's just that people being woolly in their own approach to these things. It is precise. The first word is generate. The state has to generate before it distributes and transmits. If you don't generate, you have no business hooking into the national grid. So this one we're talking about now is very precise. The language is not woolly. Say that any agency or ministry that intends to do any of these things that will impact on the operations of midstream and downstream petroleum operations must consult with NMDPRA. So there's no ambiguity in this. So when we go back, if we're trying to separate areas of conflict, we'll be properly guided by Section 48. So that the OG, my brother Bamanga, if you want to go there, you know where first of all to knock. You have to consult with this agency and iron it out. Sadiq is talking about all of them sitting down, collaborating, and doing that. Yes, but somebody has a mandate to give you authority to enter that area. You have to consult with that person to draw that authority to operate. Otherwise, it will be discordant. Anybody getting and jumping into an area it doesn't power, yes. Yes. You come, it will be resolved, sitting down. Their powers will be clearly pointed out to each agency. That's my view. Thank you.
Then, yes.
In view of what you have said so far, what is it that the prison is doing in a layman's language, talking to Nigerians, that shouldn't be done based on the limitations of the law? Simplistic. If Dangote refinery is not in place, will this issue arise? So why this issue? It is because Dangote refinery now is in place and is operating, and therefore this argument arose. So if Dangote refinery is not in place, or any other refinery like Dangote, would these issues arise? Now, that is the nexus I'm trying to portray. That even where the law is there, you must also speak to the emotions and the sentiment of Nigeria, because the National Assembly cannot here or back in Abuja X attempt to amend any law without getting these practical issues raised by various gentlemen, eminent personalities, to the Nigerian people in whose authority we're here. That's one. Then there is this issue that the last but the second to the last speaker, and I want you to specifically elaborate the message to Nigerians that the prison is violating currently, and check it, need be, what they are doing in Dangote refineries at the moment, and why they should not be doing that. Consequently, at the end of this discussion, we are well equipped and rich. Some of these arguments in twofold. One, to the larger Senate, because we are just but representative of the larger Senate. Whatever argument can pass here, a reach, as you have been done, will take it to the floor of the Senate to marshal our arguments in favor or against. And then, to the generality of Nigerians, we must never attempt to be swayed by any personal interest, no matter how good that personal interest is. But at the end of the day, if you amend a particular law, either the oil and gas prison, which is very specific, oil and gas prison, and then the PIA, what is the expectation of Nigerians as far as these laws are concerned? And I want the stakeholders, like I said earlier before now, to divulge their mind as to their institutional attachment. Let's put the country first. Other interests now become second. So I understand the prevailing circumstances of these matters at the moment and the circumstances. But we are not looking at today. We are looking at tomorrow. What do we do to enhance the revenues of this country? How do we do it in such a manner going forward that will not discourage people like Dangote and any other person who wants to become like Dangote to operate a refinery? So it is a very difficult, delicate balance. And as Nigerians, we must provide this avenue, this ground, so that people like Ashiru tomorrow will be comfortable, Senator Ashiru tomorrow will be comfortable to not start thinking big and also operating a refinery somewhere in Kogi or in Kwara or in Ningi or in Sokoto, as the case may be. So it is all evolving. It is my understanding that as we discuss these issues, I'm done, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Is it right now in my committee, the Committee on Power, because we passed an amendment on the Power Act giving states the right to generate, distribute, and transmit power. And some states have gone ahead to give licenses to distributors and actually hooked up to the national grid without paying anything. If you come and tell them, they say, no, the Constitution lets us, you have made the law telling us that it's our own. And I mean, when the National Electric Regulatory Agency now came to them to say, no, you can't have power without paying for it. They said, no, you made the law telling us to take it. So this is just what we're saying. Regulatory problems will always arise. The only saving grace we had was that we had put in that law that they have to always have meetings chaired by NEC. So NEC is now calling them for meetings to say, let us resolve this issue. So I think that we should find a way of also seeing that we will resolve the issue. The problem really is who will be at the head. Because in our own law, we made NEC the head. And so they must be subordinated. But Prof, I want to thank you for an exposition that shows that these things will always happen. And I think that we can resolve it by tweaking the law a bit. And Chairman, we should also try to find out if the same thing is happening in Dubai, the same thing is happening in Qatar, the same thing is happening in China, how were they resolved? Do we have to go there? I don't think so. I think we have to find a way of getting information from trade and investment. I think you can lead us there and let's see how they resolve the issue.
Distinguished colleagues, industry players and stakeholders here present. Chairman, I want to thank you for this retreat. And I want to thank Dr. Usman for the expository presentation he has made on this subject matter. From the beginning, it appeared that we are gathered to resolve conflicts between the regulatory authority and the free trade zone operators. And by the time we went through your presentation, you were able to highlight the areas of conflict in the existing laws, both the Petroleum Industry Act and the Oil and Gas Regulatory Authority. This other law that is existing side by side with the Petroleum Industry Act has created a conflict, clear conflict. And that's what we are saying. We are saying now, like Senator Abdul Ningi said, our concern is how to make this sector work to the benefit of Nigerians. If you look at the opening presentation, Dangote Refinery asserted that it has the capacity to produce what we need in Nigeria. We have also, as a committee, visited his facility in Lagos, twice, and we can attest to his claim. But the Act has given the midstream and downstream regulatory authority power to import petroleum products into Nigeria. And that's where the conflict is today. Today, the price of PMS is about 1,200 naira. So only yesterday or thereabout that Dangote Refinery removed 75 naira, bringing it down again to about 1,175 naira a liter. That's not what Nigerians are hoping to grapple with these biting economic challenges the country has. The citizens are suffering. So if we are faced with a situation where the pricing of these products cannot be managed in a manner that the citizens of this country can get a respite, we'll be forced to look at the law to see how we can remove these challenges. The bottom line is that Nigerians will want these petroleum products to be available at affordable prices, so the hardship will abate. So I am very happy with what you have given us. Sincerely speaking, you've been able to break it down. And that's why I'm very happy to be a member of the Governing Council of NEEDS. Yes, it means that we are working and we are researching. What you have given to us now, anybody who goes through it will appreciate the conflicts, the problems, and then we'll take them back as lawmakers. We have to look at the areas, we have to tilt the provisions and make things easy for this industry to function. I know that operators in this industry will continue to see how they can maneuver to continue to make the gain they were making during the oil subsidy regime. You know, that oil subsidy regime that was removed has put them under pressure. That is why I'm not surprised that the opinion of the Attorney General of the Federation, which you correctly identified, was tilted to one institution, one part of the warring factions. It is not going to be so. We, the lawmakers, will balance it. Like you noted, the opinion of the AGF, Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, can be challenged in court. And the lawyers are there. What is important remain the provisions of the law, the Act itself, the PIA, and the other subsidiary legislation we have. So I thank you very much, and I'm enjoying our colleagues that when we go home, we work in a manner to remove this conflict we are seeing here. Clash of interests, profit taking, and all that. We have to look at them very dispassionately and make the ground even.